Support for this program is provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and from viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to Louisiana Public Square. I'm Beth Courtney, president of LPB. Joining me tonight to explore Louisiana's college admission standards is LPB news anchor Andre Morrow. Andre, thanks for being here tonight.
Beth, thank you so much for having me. When it comes to higher education, Louisiana has been in the game since 1860. That's when LSU opened its doors. Until 2001, universities could admit whatever they wanted, whatever student they wanted. There were no statewide admission standards.
Well, in fact, in the 80s, the chancellor of LSU caused an uproar when he set minimum requirements for admissions. Governor John McKeithen said at the time that the move violated LSU's tradition as a poor man's university. The measures passed and standards increased again in the 90s. Recent changes to the admission requirements of Louisiana's flagship university have again triggered a firestorm. Well, tonight we explore the holistic admissions approach, as well as what college entrance standards across Louisiana should be. Join us as we put an eye on admissions.
So if you scroll down, you can see some of the activities that you may have already put in there, and then we can add another activity.
Among Dana Schlotter's duties as assistant principal for Runnels School is helping high school seniors with their college applications. For students interested in attending LSU, the university has made some significant changes.
In prior years, they used benchmark admissions. So if a student had a 3.0 core GPA and a 22 on the ACT, they knew they would get admitted, as long as their ACT score also had a 19 in math and an 18 in English for their subscores. This year, they decided to move to holistic admissions, which means that instead of guaranteeing that a student with those two markers gets in, they are going to look at the whole student.
Applicants to LSU with lower GPA or ACT scores still have a shot at being accepted. Weight is now given to other factors like resumes, essays, and letters of recommendations that they're required to submit. These new tasks aren't overwhelming at a small private school like Runnels, Schlotter says, but
I worry about my colleagues who are public school counselors who were already overwhelmed. Now, in addition to that, they have to figure out a way to make time to help these students. You know, some of these public schools have 600 plus seniors. How are they going to help that many students apply to LSU?
When you eliminate or lower admission requirements, and that results in people who are not prepared for study at the university.
Dr. James Wharton was chancellor of LSU during the 80s.
Our graduation rate was about 30%, and half of the students didn't make it past their freshman year.
Wharton worked with state education leaders to develop college preparatory classes around a core curriculum. By 1988, ACT scores for entering LSU freshmen rose from 21.2 to 23. Graduation rates improved to 47%.
We started getting more graduates through the university with less students coming into the university because they weren't qualified. We did a lot of kids a big favor.
In 2001, the state's higher ed governing board followed LSU's lead. Janine Kahn is vice president of academic affairs for the University of Louisiana system.
In 2001, the Board of Regents rolled out its master plan for post-secondary education here in the state of Louisiana. And one of those elements of the plan was minimum admission standards for our universities. So what they set forth was a floor that universities had at a minimum could go to in order to admit a student.
When President King Alexander changed to holistic admissions at LSU, however, he didn't consult the Board of Regents. Alexander touted recently that the new standards are already generating benefits for the university.
Of the 5,800 students we have coming to LSU, the largest freshman class in our history, but largest out-of-state class, the largest in-state class, the highest achieving class. This is the highest achieving class we've ever had. The freshman average is a 3.55.
because the university is receiving increasingly smaller amounts of funding from the state government, that is having to kind of see how to get revenue wherever it is. And if that means getting more students in seats, then that's exactly what he's going to do.
Patrick Gagan is a finance major and columnist at the Reveille, LSU's student newspaper. He penned a column opposing holistic admissions, comparing it to the lowering of credit standards in the 70s and the resulting housing bubble.
Many of the people receiving mortgages, some didn't have jobs or incomes. And when you lower the admission standards and you give people without incomes mortgages, delinquency rates, they rise.
He says a similar move by LSU will attract unprepared students and lower academic standards.
So either we'll see, a higher dropout rate, or we'll see grade inflation. I predict that grade inflation is a more likely outcome. And grade inflation basically means that professors kind of like water down the curriculum.
There are a lot of people out there that think that we're lowering the standards, and we're not. It's going to help the overall makeup of the mix of kids at the university.
Ronnie Anderson is president of the Louisiana Farm Bureau and sits on the LSU Board of Supervisors. He says that a lack of resources in rural communities often prevents those students from meeting admission requirements. The changes to LSU standards will be monitored by the supervisors, Anderson says.
If our level of achievement drops at LSU, we're going to adjust and look at that and make changes and do some things. We're not going to allow that to happen. The standards are going to be the final work that we produce, and the product that we produce is going to be no less using this approach than the other.
The State Board of Regents allows each university to exempt a percentage of its incoming class from the minimum standards. Alexander said in a letter to the board that under its holistic admissions approach, it granted 7.5% of incoming freshmen exemptions, nearly double the 4% it's allowed. In January, the board will begin auditing all 14 of the state's four-year colleges, exploring the number of students being admitted by exception. It will also determine the consequences for schools exceeding the limit. The results are due in the spring.
Joining us now to explore Louisiana college admission standards is our studio audience. We have a parent and a student going through the college application process, several guidance counselors, and the head of Louisiana's School Counselor Association. We also have 3 high schoolers from the Legislative Youth Advisory Council. So I want to welcome everyone for being here with us. We have a full crowd. Earlier this month, the Louisiana Board of Regents released its updated higher education fact book. Among the data for four-year public universities, for the fall of 2017, there were a little over 141,000 students, almost 142,000 students enrolled. 85% were undergraduate students and nearly 15% graduate. In terms of gender, 41% of the students were male, nearly 60% women. Where did these students come from? 84% from Louisiana, 12% from out of state, and nearly 4% came from outside of the United States. And when it comes to financial aid, nearly 33% of undergraduates in the 2016 school year received federal Pell Grants, while 37% of undergraduates used the state's TOPS program. For first-time freshmen, I should say that percentage, it was even much higher. 71% of them used that TOPS scholarship. So let's start there. TOPS requirements, well, they require certain minimum ACT scores and rewards higher scores with additional funds. Should college admission standards provide the same flexibility? What do you think the standards would be? Let's begin with our studio audience, and I will ask first Denise Latour.
I'm representing Louisiana School Counseling Association, and the majority of our members have indicated they like the holistic approach.
They like the holistic approach?
Yes.
And they are well informed with what that is?
I cannot answer that question. I'm not sure how well informed we are at this point about
What have they said they
holistic
like
approach.
about it?
That students can be looked at beyond test scores.
So it's more overall, not cut and dry, just computer?
Yes, that there's more to students than their test scores. They think some students have the ability to be successful despite lacking test scores.
All right, let me ask Andre right here on the front row. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I also support the holistic approach, and I do agree that there is more to an individual than a test score. I can be that example where my test scores on the ACT were not stellar, but yet was able to go to college, do very well, and retire after 40 years from a large major chemical company. So I do appreciate the holistic approach because people are more than a test score.
All right. We've got a mother and son who are going through this process together at the same time. Eve and Evan, Jupiter, tell us about your experience. What are you finding?
Well, how I apply to schools through the Common App, I find that it's very easy for me to use, and my guidance counselor, they help me a lot through the process with writing me essays.
Is the process difficult? Is the process difficult, do you think?
If it depends on what school I'm applying to. If I'm applying to a school that doesn't use the Common App, I'll say that it could be a little bit harder than when I'm using the Common App.
But your guidance advisor is a big help,
Yes,
I would
sir.
suspect. Mom?
For me, I'm finding that although the GPA is fabulous, the ACT is a little more of a struggle. And in my opinion, it's a struggle because it's timed. So time test, you get a little more anxious about versus with your studies, you're able to balance. Evan is an athlete. He has a job. He's very diverse.
What school are you going to?
McKinley Senior High School.
McKinley Senior High School. Okay.
Right. So his focus has not necessarily been on the ACT the 4 years at McKinley. It's been mainly on maintaining his GPA and his studies and things in that nature.
Evan, let me ask you this. Did you ever consider community college? There's a big push for community college enrollment these days.
Yes, sir. I consider it, like, if college doesn't work out, like going to a university, I'm willing to go to like a community college and get a trade.
We have some guidance counselors here, and I was told that guidance counselor is not the term used anymore. Someone raise their hand and tell me. What is the term used now?
The term is school counselor.
What is it?
School counselor.
General school counselor.
Professional school counselor.
Professional school counselor. So we have several professional school counselors with us. What are your thoughts on this process?
My thought is it's great that, the colleges and the universities, they want to look at the whole student and, like someone said, not just the points, but the concern that I somewhat would have, and maybe some of the teachers as well, when it comes to the recommendation letters, and when you have so many students that are filling out these applications, it can get overwhelming, with so many coming in, because we do have a lot of students that want to attend colleges and universities within the state.
Tell me about the Common App. Your thoughts on that?
Basically, with it, the student will have to fill out their report. They have to do an essay with it. They have to have a recommendation letter so they can request their teacher or their counselor to do a recommendation letter for them. And so, like I said, if you have so many students that come in at, one time saying, hey, I need this done, then, it can get overwhelming. But I think it's a great process.
Corey, you want to say something. You're raising your hand.
I don't know with that. Sorry. But I think it's important to note that LSU does not currently use Common Application. The only application process previously they use is you type in your GPA, you type in your ACT, there's a small little box by your other extracurriculars, and that's it. With the holistics approach to doing those, taking a look at students who may not pass with just that simple box, and takes a deeper look at students who may not get in. I think it's really important, though, that It's looking at students who may have been affected recently, like in the flood, who didn't have the right credit hours, or students in rural communities who may not have the exact same ability to take courses such as like foreign language. Like if you don't have 2 consecutive foreign language sequences, you can't enroll at LSU. So the holistics approach will take a look at students who may not have had the opportunity or the abilities because of the school system you are in, and looks at those students. I feel like it's important to distinguish that it's not just like for every single student applying. Like for me personally, I was blessed to have a good enough ACT and GPA score that I wouldn't have needed the holistics approach, so I wouldn't have needed a recommendation letter. It would only been my peers who weren't successful in that aspect.
What role does TOPS play in someone deciding whether they're going to go to LSU or go to a state school or not? Is that becoming
I think it's
increasing thing?
Well, I think it's absolutely a huge part of it. For me personally, TOPS was the biggest factor in me going to LSU, aside from the fact that I love LSU in general. But I have plenty of friends who they could pay for their own college, so they went somewhere else, and if they couldn't have, they definitely would have stayed in state. But also I think it's important to notice that just because you get into LSU doesn't mean you qualify for TOPS. So a lot of these people who are getting this holistic admission won't be qualifying for TOPS either.
Let me hear from a legislative youth student, and I'm looking at you right now. Sophie, what about your process as you went into all this?
Yeah.
Was it a difficult thing to do? Was it something that was easy to navigate?
Well, I haven't started applications because I am a junior, so that's not really something I've started looking into yet.
You must be on the cusp of doing that, though,
yes,
right?
sir. But my main concern comes with the subjectivity of the whole process, and I know a lot of universities in the north, which is where I'm looking at going. A lot of those universities have been using a holistic approach, and they're able to because they're smaller schools. But because LSU is such a large school, my concern comes with making sure that the people who are looking at these applications are qualified, considering it was such a drastic change from what LSU had been doing in the past.
So you have given this a great deal of thought, even if you haven't filled out those papers
Yes,
yet. I want to hear from, am I saying Shy? Yes. Shy. C-H-I, but Shy, pronounced Shy.
Correct.
Ms. Franklin, tell me your thoughts on this.
Being an 11-year counselor, I have seen students come and go, and starting them in the 9th grade and seeing them mature to senior year is a beautiful thing. But in that maturity, there have been things that have happened with them over the years. So for some students, they can be the brightest student, but possibly because of their circumstances, it does not reflect the number, it does not reflect the GPA, that particular grade, but that student can go on, and we've seen them time after time after time after they graduate. We're like, you're not that particular student we remember, you're now this model citizen that's contributing to the community, and that growth has come from someone giving them a chance. I want to go back to Corey saying that LSU does not use the Common App. They do use the Common App, but they started using the Common App 2 years ago. And with that, it is a lot of work on some of the larger schools. And with that, we have to be very, very specific. It becomes a time-consuming situation which goes well beyond the school level of the time and capacity that we have, but we have to take the time to individualize those student circumstances so that we give them that fair opportunity. And it may have to go beyond that common application to be able to call our representatives, call our recruiters for our specific schools and tell them, Evan may not have the high ACT score, but his GPA is very high, but he's a well-rounded student. He is involved in a lot of extracurricular activities, and that will make that particular student for your university an asset. So hearing us say those things, but having the time to do it in the 28 hours that we may try to have in the day, it takes a lot out of the 2 or 3 or 4 that may be on the campus for 300 children at any given time.
Okay, thank you very much, Shai. That's all the time we've got for this portion of the show, but when we come back, our panel of experts will join us to explore Louisiana's college admission standards. Welcome back, everyone, to Louisiana Public Square. Tonight, we are exploring Louisiana's college admission standards. And joining us now is our panel of experts. Jose Aviles is the Vice President for Enrollment Management at LSU. In his role, he oversees the recruiting and retention efforts for the university. He previously served at State University of New York in Buffalo, where his recruiting efforts broke records for freshman enrollment. Next, Dan Claytor is a Republican state senator from Baton Rouge. He has served on the Senate Education Committee and is a current member of the Judiciary and Health and Welfare Committees. His district includes part of LSU. Dr. James Henderson became the University of Louisiana System President in January of 2017, and he's been on the road ever since all over the state. Prior to his role, he served 2 years as president of his alma mater, Northwestern State University, and 6 years as chancellor of Bossier Parish Community College. Mark Ballard, to my right here, has been the editor in charge of the Advocate newspaper's Capital News Bureau since 2007. He attended LSU as an undergraduate and received his master's degree from Columbia University. He has been extensively covering the holistic admissions issue. Now, before we go to our audience for the many questions that they want to ask all of you, I want to ask each of you first, very briefly, from your perspective, are Louisiana colleges rigorous enough in their admission standards? And Jose, let's begin with you.
Well, I think it's hard for me as a newcomer to fully answer that. Just looking at where LSU is and fully getting to know LSU for this past year, there's no question that we are selective in nature and that we attract a pretty broad span of students from across the country. And I think especially what we're doing currently really is trying to make sure that we're finding the students that fit best and are prepared best to deal with the rigors of a LSU educational journey. For us, the priority is really making sure that the students that we're providing access to are in fact ready to engage and be successful at our institution and participate at a high degree to ensure that their success with us is in fact adequately considered in the front end.
What about you, Dan? For years, there was no test or anything you had to take, and then, of course, there became more standards.
Yeah. I think that we have good standards right now, but that's part of what we're here to talk about as far as whether or not we're actually following all that. But with the number of universities that we have and the roles assigned to the different universities, I think we have a good system.
All right. Jim, you have your hand on a number of universities and oversee them. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, we've got the 9 institutions of the University of Louisiana system, and when you look at the higher ed enterprise in Louisiana, we have a flagship institution, which of course is LSU A&M. And we have statewide institutions, research institutions, University of New Orleans, University of Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Tech, and we have our regional universities, and they have a tiered approach to admissions. And I think when you look at the enterprise holistically, as opposed to admissions holistically, you see that we've got a great ramped up, I think, approach to admissions that ensures that we're expanding access to all students. We have a community college system that's open access, for instance. At the end of the day, we should be really focused on outcomes less than inputs, and focused on producing the graduates that are necessary to propel the Louisiana economy. And that's really what we're focused on the UL system.
Okay. Now, Mark Ballard, you can't exactly give your opinion, being a newspaper person yourself, but you have covered a lot of stories. You've compared state universities to other state universities and universities. What do you notice?
Well, to go off of what Dr. Henderson said, is this argument is mostly over mission. When I went to LSU, I came up from Lafourche Parish with no ACT scores worthwhile and a solid low C grade point average, and did well because all I had to do was sign the check and I was in at LSU. And if I studied hard, which I did, then I did well. That is one mission, and it has expanded, as you're saying, as a different tiered system. And what we're hearing a lot of the arguments from the people who are angry about the LSU holistic change is that it's weakening the standards in this tiered system. And that is the primary argument that we're seeing. I'm not sure how we rack up with other states, with other flagships. They're not as high as other flagships, but with other state schools, they're in line when we're looking at other states.
Well, you see all these people out here right now. They have come armed with questions for you, and they want answers. So there's some I haven't talked to yet. I will start with Loretta Evans.
My question is, what other criteria are you looking at in addition to the ACT and the GPA score, and how heavily weighted is it? Our concern is more so like the subjectivity of who's looking at it and how heavily weighted is, for example, someone who went through the flood twice compared to someone whose parents got divorced, or someone who just had a rough year emotionally. So I guess just how is that weighted, and how do you maintain the consistency once you weight those things?
Sounds like our college guys could answer that. Jose or Jim?
Sure. Let me just say that holistic review is not new, right? Holistic review has been around for, I've been at both public and private institutions for 21 years now, working in college admissions. This is the first institution that I'm serving that in fact was not holistic review. Every other institution over the last 21 years of my entire experience in college admissions has practiced holistic admissions. So I say that because in our field, holistic review is really the gold standard of how you practice admissions. We fully understand, the research has outlined for us that the best review, the most rigorous assessment of a student at the point of admission exists when you are looking at a student comprehensively, in their totality. Mm-hmm. We firmly believe, and many of my colleagues across the country believe, that a student should matter much more over the course of the 4 years of work that they've done. That should matter so much more than what they're doing in 3 hours on a Saturday, sitting down and taking the ACT or SAT. But the research bears that out, right? So the research tells us that an ACT alone or a GPA alone is insufficient to make the decision on whether or not a student can be successful in participating at an institution like LSU. So you're looking at other factors. You're looking at things like, can you determine through a more qualitative review, through a review of essays and recommendations, which are vital, whether a student has really developed a strong work ethic, whether a student has developed that grittiness to get up every single day on a college campus and fight again when things get hard, right? Are they really invested in terms of the quality of their interest in learning and in research, especially at a place like LSU, right? Can you measure that level of engagement and those kinds of things? Will a student be a successful and participatory member of our community outside the classroom? What's interesting is the student government folks on our campus, the students now, the student government, are saying that they've seen the highest levels of engagement from this freshman class than ever before outside the classroom. The rooms are standing room only. That's part because we looked at that when we evaluated for the students coming in. We were looking at how are they really carrying out their full academic experience outside of just the classroom. So there's no question in admissions, and especially in a competitive and selective admission process like LSU, what's going to weigh most is always going to be that 4-year experience, that transcript that you submit based on what you've done in high school, and that board score. The other parts of the application are just going to give us a full picture, the totality of the student. At the end of the day, we will not admit students to participate at LSU who we do not think are prepared to endure the rigors of an LSU education. But the research tells us that that assessment has to exist beyond a high school grade point average and board scores. Even the ACT themselves has said that without the use of a comprehensive review, you're lessening your overall evaluation of an applicant.
Okay, I want to ask if anybody, go ahead, Jim.
Well, Andre, if I could just follow up, I think Jose brings up some great points, and it's important to understand that when you're reviewing a student for admission, the most important thing is to focus on that student and their readiness for success at your institution. And that can vary based on the experience of the student and the mission of the institution. And you have objective measures of that. GPA over 4 years in a high school experience is important. The rigor of the courses that they took. That's why Louisiana was one of the leaders in coming up with the Core 4 curriculum, which is important to ensure college readiness. Coupled with the ACT, those two objective standards are a great predictor of student success. With a holistic approach, you are able to then analyze other aspects of the student's preparedness. But it's important to understand that that's an augmentation to the objective standards and not a standard in and of itself that substitutes for that. At the end of the day, if we're admitting students that aren't prepared for success at our institutions, we're not serving that student well. But I think that was envisioned when the Board of Regents created the admission standards as part of the master plan of 2005.
Okay, Dan, let me ask you, what's your thought on this?
Well, I think neither one of these guys actually answered the lady's question. She said, how much are you going to weight it? And they talked about the different things that they do consider. And is it 10%? Is it 20%? Or how much? I think it is something to be considered that we're talking about this. And I agree with what they're saying about the ACT and the grade points are good predictors. But her question was, how much are you going to weight it? And so I would be interested in that answer myself.
Well, and what I was going to follow up with is that those objective measures tell you what a student should aspire to achieve. So a student should want to get a GPA in the core if they want to go to the flagship institution of a 3.0. And they should shoot for as high of an ACT score as they can get. And they vary based on the institutions, but understanding what those objective measures are helps a student aspire to what they should achieve. If a student falls short of that, then holistic admissions allows us to understand what kind of external factors might have been involved. But the key is you want to get a student that's prepared for success at your institution and then prepared for success after your institution. Mark?
But the opponents to the holistic approach has come about because they are afraid that by lowering the ACT score that we're going to be lowering the standards for the students. And we have let in more students that have those lower ACT scores. And then in other parts of the country, if you're looking, the ACT score is much higher than, and I have a son that's doing what you're doing right now, and he's checking these ACT scores, and they use a holistic approach, but they need a 32, a 33, a 34 to even get a sniff at being admitted into that college.
Let me ask a student real quick. Camden, what's your question?
So my question is, in regards to the holistic process, I'm wondering, do other factors play into it? Like perhaps your race, your socioeconomic status, maybe your gender or sexuality? Because those kind of impact your opportunity. So if you're a low-income family from inner city New Orleans, your chances to write a good essay or even still score well on the ACT or have a good grade point average are significantly lower than if you're wealthy and you live in a suburban area. So do you guys look at those when you're considering the application? Is that part of the holistic review?
Not explicitly, right? I mean, the end of the day, we want to understand a student in their entire context. So we want to understand their lived experience for sure, right? And under the current law, all of those things that you outlined can be one of many factors that are used to consider the selectivity of your process. We certainly want to create a well-balanced institution that's representative of the state here in Louisiana. So we're looking broadly across the students who are applying to make sure that we are attracting that diverse cohort of applicants, that we can then craft a class that truly is going to be the best learning experience for any student who chooses LSU. So I would say that in some ways, without it being very explicit, there's things that go into the context of the student's lived experience that we're considering for sure.
All right, another question from our audience. Jacqueline?
What are you doing to ensure that our students who are here in Louisiana stay here in Louisiana? And do you feel that this holistic approach will increase the chances of students who desire to leave? Because I've heard a couple of students here tonight say they're going up north. Do you feel that this approach will encourage them to stay home?
Listen, I come from up north, don't go up there. It's much better, much warmer, except today. But listen, you know, we've greatly expanded our reach across the state. Last year we made a commitment to have recruiters recruit every single parish of the state of Louisiana. We set up shop over weekends by renting out hotel space and inviting students who were applicants to come into those spaces to really sit down with we're the experts in admissions. That's our office. We have critical information that can help students not only engage in the college admission process and end up at LSU, but my message is, as the first person in my family went off to college, my message is, if LSU is the best fit, go to LSU. But if it's not, we should find a way in which we can provide you that opportunity through our counseling as admission counselors and professionals to find the best place for you. That's why we set up shop all throughout the state last year, and we're committed to do that again this year. The other thing is, I think when you look across, especially some of the rural communities across the state of Louisiana, you know, sometimes when you're looking at just the bar, and we're telling students that you're only defined by that ACT score or another metric, and that's just black and white that way. I think, and the research bears this out as well, it's not just I think. The research tells us that there's a natural self-selecting process of students that say, I'm not good enough and so I'm not going to engage. I'm not even going to apply. So I think what we've seen a huge growth across the state of Louisiana from both applicants and then students who ultimately enrolled. And I think it has something to do with the fact that we're being broader in terms of our messaging and being much more willing to roll up our sleeves and get to work in these parishes.
Jose, let me ask you this. LSU's enrollment over the past several years has just in general been rather flat, while a school like Alabama has, which used to have a smaller student population, has soared well in advance of LSU. I'm not sure their tactics, what they've done. I don't think Saban's in charge of admission standards, but is LSU, the standards being broadened to increase enrollment?
Not for that reason. We're broadening standards because it's consistent with what the research tells us about the best way to practice admissions, and because 50 out of the 50 top public flagship institutions and across the country, 40 of them use holistic review. The top 50, according to U.S. News and World Report, 48 of the 50 use holistic review. It is the best practice and is research-based. If you're practicing anything within your profession that is not consistent with research or best practices, I think you're in a bad space.
How different is it with LSU and with the University of Louisiana system, your approach?
Well, I think it's important to understand that we have a tiered system in Louisiana. And it's important to understand the mission of the institution. So if the mission is to be a flagship institution, your comparison is to your nationwide peers of flagships. And if you're going to compare them on outcomes, you have to compare them on inputs.
And you mentioned tiered systems,
right.
so define that if you would.
So we have a flagship institution that is compared to flagships at other states. Texas A&M, Georgia, Purdue, Florida are great examples of who you can compare them to.
And that flagship is LSU.
And if we're going to compare LSU to those institutions, then you also have to have a student body that's reflective of those institutions as well. You know, we serve 92,000 students at the universities of Louisiana. 70,000 of those students would be admissible to LSU. But we hold these institutions accountable to measures against their peer institutions. So University of Louisiana Lafayette, that does more than $100 million in NSF-funded research every year, that produces graduates that are prepared for work in any number of fields. We compare them to like institutions. Northwestern State, my alma mater, is a regional university, and we compare them to regional universities. But similarly, our admissions criteria are to produce a student body that is also measurable against these similar institutions. And so measuring these institutions against their peers is absolutely essential. We have opportunities in the state of Louisiana for students that come from all backgrounds. Students that are the highest achievers. I know two that go to University of Louisiana at Lafayette because they're very dear to me. One's a son of mine. They could have gone to any institution in the country. They chose an institution because it was the right fit for them. And that's really what's most important, is selecting an institution that is going to be in the best interest of the student that we're trying to serve. At the same time, as a state, from a policy perspective, we want to have an approach that ensures that we're are competitive with our other states, our neighboring states and other states across the country. One of those competitive measures is to ensure that we have a flagship institution that is on a level with these other states.
Dan and Mark, you've been patiently listening, but I think you have something to say.
I have a question for them. The demographics have shown that by 2025 that we're going to be looking at about 18 to 20% drop in college age students. And so my question is, does the holistic admissions that we're talking about play a role in trying to, as one of the students said during the video, putting butts in seats? I mean, we're looking at an 18 to 20% drop in the number of students available.
Well, but let me respond to that if I could, Mark, because part of that is our nature to view education is a linear path and that the vast majority of our students are going to come from high school into a college population. We have 1.2 million adults in Louisiana, working age adults in Louisiana, that have a high school diploma or less. We've got 500,000 adults in Louisiana that have some college credits but no college degree. So if you add those up, that's 1.7 million in the population today that aren't in the high school population that's coming to us, that need the services of colleges and universities if they're going to be competitive in the 21st century workforce.
So we'll replace those students with adults?
It's a shift in our mindset that we're no longer serving just traditional students. And we've got to find ways to augment our enrollments with adults that desperately need our services if they're going to be competitive.
Well, Mark, Senator Clayton, we've got a wry grin on your face. I think you have something to say.
Well, Mark is onto something there in that we are losing some of that population, and there's some element of it that we saw that the student newspaper article was about. Some of it is about money, and to say that it's not, we're just closing our eyes to that truth. But is it all about money? I don't think it's all about money. Are older folks going to come back and go to school? My mother, when we got out of the house, she went back and got her master's. But is that going to be a big jump? It's gone along that way. One thing I wanted to throw in that Henderson talked about is the mission of the tiered system, and who has what mission has been determined by regents. It's not one that the universities chose themselves and said, this is our mission. And so that's where some of the friction is coming in, that regents is sending out a message and they're having some concern about whether it's being listened to and followed.
The Board of Regents that has the constitutional charge to develop a master plan for higher education.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying he didn't know, I'm just saying he was trying to keep his answer short.
That's right. That's right.
But I think it's important information to get in context what part of the brouhaha is about.
All right, thank you. We have another studio audience member, Reverend Hazard. You've been very patient up there. What is your question?
Yes, sir. The only thing I was thinking about is clarity, clarification. You know, I'm a minister, you know, and I'm an expert at the Bible, and I'm always preaching the Word of God, the Bible, to people, and I have to make sure that they understand what I'm preaching, you know, what that Bible is saying. I could throw the Bible at them, you know, and they wouldn't understand a thing what I just read to them. You know, so I'm looking at you guys, you educators, and, you know, how you are, you know, clarifying this, you know, the student body to the faculty to student body. And the hostility might be coming up because of the fact that the student body is not understanding exactly why the changes are being made, you know, and I'm just looking at clarity, you know, how y'all gonna do this, you know, how you gonna get it over to them?
Well, Reverend, if I could, I think you hit the nail on the head. Objective standards provide that clarity, right? So when you have objective standards, whether it's in GPA in the core, whether it's ACT scores, it gives a lot of clarity. But the regents showed their wisdom by allowing a certain level of exceptions at each institution. So that for students, if you aspire to go to LSU, or if you aspire to go to University of Louisiana Lafayette or Louisiana Tech, you know specifically what the GPA you should aim towards and the ACT score you should aim towards. But also understand that if you fall short in one of those measures, that there is the ability for those institutions to exercise one of those exceptions. The key is to hit the objective standards. And once you hit those objective standards, then you can be assured in Louisiana that you can attend the university of your choice.
Let's go to our audience once again. And you had your hand up right there.
I was
Richard?
going to ask you, you've got a sufficient sample size of exceptions that you've made. Have you tracked the data? What % graduate from those exceptions versus the traditional students who meet the criteria without the exceptions?
Yes. See, so at the very beginning of this process, we were looking at that very closely, right? And what's interesting is that you see students that are being admitted below the bar. This is called the bar. The 20 at LSU would be 22 and a 3.0. That was historically the bar. What the Board of Regents would say is 25 or a 3.0. Ours is 22 and a 3.0. But when you look at the students that were right below that bar, the students that were admitted on exceptions, right, over the last 5 years, those students graduated at the same rate as the students that were in the bottom quarter of the class, which means that that bar that we've set is so arbitrary, right? Students right below that were graduating at the same rate the students that were right above the bar, right? And so we see that again, we can probably do a better job and strengthen our assessment overall on the front end by looking at students comprehensively, by looking at their application in totality, and getting to know the students who are applying. Because the question in college admissions has always been, and will always be, making sure that you're selecting students who fit your institution best. You can't do that with just looking at 2 metrics.
Let's go back over here to, did you have something to say?
I just want to say that I will tell you that there can be students that fall below those objective standards that can be successful in college. But traditionally, you should have an institutional culture that's designed to meet those students where they are. It means you have to have the support structures in place, the scaffolding in place to ensure that those students are able to be successful in college. Otherwise, you're setting them up for failure. The challenge is when you look at the variance in our institutional missions, and you have to say, okay, if I invest resources in this scaffolding to ensure a student that may be lesser prepared or has lower academic achievements, investing in that support structure as opposed to investing in research or investing in the activities that ensure that higher achieving students can be successful, you've got a limited number of resources. So you have to balance that very, very carefully. That's one of the great things about our tiered approach in Louisiana to ensuring that students of all levels of preparation have a path forward.
Are remedial courses offered, or have they been cut out?
Remedial courses have been a kind of an evolution. There are no remedial courses offered at 4-year institutions in Louisiana. At some institutions, they have what's called co-requisite courses, where you're taking, instead of a 3-hour college algebra class, you might take a 5-hour college algebra class that has elements of remediation involved. But our partnerships with community colleges have ensured that we've been able to provide a pathway for students that might need remediation in a more comprehensive way.
And a cheaper
cheaper way
through the community college system. And we still haven't answered Loretta's question as far as I'm concerned.
Why don't you go back to that and let's readdress that. We have time right now.
Well, I like I'm a lawyer, I like clear standard, bright line, we know where it is. But in the instance where the kid doesn't clear the bar, and we are going to consider them holistically, is it 20% their extracurricular activities? Is it 10%? And perhaps you're telling me we can't do that, but then that's when we get into the question about, are we being arbitrary, or are we being unfair about who we're letting in? And I think everybody wants it to be done fairly and not arbitrarily, and understand with clarity what it takes to get into the university when you don't clear the bar easily. So it's a difficult thing, but like Andre said earlier when he was talking, that he was a bubble student and that he was successful. I was probably a bubble student as a lawyer, and I would make the case that I turned out to be a decent lawyer when it was all said and done.
I'll be honest, I wasn't a bubble student, and I struggled a little bit, but it was more behavioral than it was academic.
So we're going to go back to our audience now, and Miles, you and your daughter are here, but let me go to you first with your question.
Okay, thank you, Andre. This is certainly a topic that is close to my heart. I have a daughter who's a junior at LSU right now in the Ogden Honors College. Landry's applying to colleges right now, so we're going through that whole process. I graduated along with my wife from LSU in business, and I'm on the honors board. So I've got a lot invested in Louisiana education. In going through this process myself, I've certainly seen that a lot of the schools that just about everyone that my kids have applied to does take a holistic approach, all the way from the Ivy Leagues. They're looking at it to pick the very best of the best. So it's not necessarily a minimum criteria as much as it can be a maximum criteria. I've used this analogy with friends in discussing the topic. Being a Baton Rouge-based business owner, if I'm interviewing someone, I'm not going to hand them a test and let them fill it out and me look at them and say, okay, well, you scored very high, I'm going to hire you. I want to learn a lot more about them. You go through the interview process. You talk to them about what they've done. You might bring them back for a second interview to learn more. So I guess in encapsulating everything, I certainly feel like the holistic approach is a positive approach for the university if done right, and there certainly does have to be criterias, and I don't know whether you cap certain things or give percentage weight to certain things, but I think it is the trend of the future, and it's we're heading in the right direction.
I'm not sure if that's a question, but Mark, I want to hear your reaction to hearing him say what he said. As you've covered this extensively. So.
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with the holistic idea, but there still is an importance that is on the ACT, and are we bringing in students that are lowering the standards of our flagship university? That seems to be where the argument lies with a number of the people that are bringing this up. Has there been mission creep? I'm hearing a lot from LSU professors that say, you know, I'm ending up having to slow down my teaching, you know, to pick up this one person, you know, that may not have made it. Yeah, and
Mark, if I could, I think it's important to understand that there's different approaches to holistic admissions, and so when you talk about Ivy League schools, you're using holistic admissions to discern between an applicant pool that all had 34 plus ACTs, right? And you're actually going to deny admission to a student that has a 4.0 plus GPA and 34 plus ACT, and you use holistic admissions then to discern which. Look at Texas A&M, a public flagship institution, if you will, from Texas. It might have 41,000 applicants, qualified applicants, for 8,500 slots. And they grant admission to about 13,000 students of that 41,000 qualified, and 8,500 come to school there. They use a holistic approach to discern which of those 13,000 are going to use. If holistic admissions is used as an exception to objective measures, that's when you can run into some problems. When you use holistic admissions as an augmentation, an enhancement to these objective measures, then I think that's when you can really ensure that you're meeting the needs of your institution, you're best serving the student, and you're achieving at the level that your mission requires.
I'm a counselor at San Mo High School, and my concern is that I have kids that are applying not only to LSU but to some of our other schools, Southeastern, UL Lafayette, La Tech. They're taking the time to fill out the Common App. It's a lot on them to fill that out, and they're paying that fee just so they can apply to LSU, but then they're also taking the time to fill out the other applications. And it just seems like it's difficult because it's so many different. With LSU and some of your other schools, Texas A&M, Georgia, Baylor, they can use the Common App for those, but not for Southeastern, UL, La Tech. So it's just kind of difficult there. And then the overwhelming stress on some of the teachers having to write those recommendations for them in the Common App, but we're also writing recommendations the other way too. I just see a lot of stress on overall all of that.
Panel, we need to have a closing comment from each of you. Jose, why don't you start us off?
Well, certainly to your point, we know that there's a lot of work to be done. This is going to require a heavy lift from everyone in the system who's an educator. But understand that we know that the current state of education right now requires that kind of effort. We have great challenges that we're confronting, and it's not just at the point of admission, it's throughout the entire K-12 system, and that's not just Louisiana, it's nationally. So we're trying to do our best as educators to make the best assessment of students who are applying using what we understand about what is the best method to most rigorously evaluate students and provide the appropriate opportunity for participation. And that's what we're trying to do.
Dan?
Well, thank you, Andre, and thank you for the folks that have traveled here to participate in it. As a policymaker, we have delegated a lot of our authority to the Board of Regents. And I believe they've done their job as far as preparing a tiered system, and it created an opportunity for everyone in Louisiana to attend a university. But I do agree that on the edges there is room for the holistic side. I don't believe that it should be done across the board completely. I think we should have standards in a flagship, and that I don't want to devalue the value of graduating from these different universities. But it's a public policy question that we can continue to have, and I'm happy to hear from people on that, and I appreciate that you've come here tonight.
Reach an agreement. Jim?
Well, Natalie, to your point, I think it's important that we, as consumer-driven enterprises, if you will, find ways to ease the transition for students from secondary school to post-secondary school. And unfortunately, we haven't done that well. We continue to work on that. But I will tell you that the 92,000 students that we serve, we have a focus right now, between now and the year 2025, to produce the most educated generation in Louisiana's history. Not because we want to extol that as something that we've accomplished, because we know it's necessary if Louisiana is going to be competitive in a 21st century economy. We know that the future of work requires a more educated workforce than ever before. We know if communities are going to enjoy quality of life, if students are going to have all of the benefits that are afforded by this 21st century economy, they have to be prepared for it. And so our total efforts are ensuring that we ease that transition, whether it's from secondary work to post-secondary work, or from the world of work into getting a college degree. We're happy to make that happen.
And Mark, final brief comment.
This is what I can say is that most universities in the country use a holistic standard. They do put a lot of emphasis on the ACT within their holistic standards, but I think what we've seen in this argument here is kind of an extension of what has been going on for the last 10 years, which included dramatic decreases in funding and now an effort to try to get more students in, because the students are now paying for what the state used to pay for.
Panel, thank you so much for your expertise, your comments. Audience, we thank you very much. We've run out of time now for this segment of our show. Thanks so much for everyone, Mr. Aviles, Senator Claytor, Dr. Henderson, and Mr. Ballard for their insight on this month's topic. And when we come back, we'll have a few closing comments.
Well, Andre, there'll be a lot of conversation, research, and looking into this topic.
I don't know that we solved anything tonight,
I don't
but
know.
we sure continued the discussion.
But I would say in the spring, I think the Board of Regents is supposed to look at this, and all indications are people will come to some sort of consensus at that point. But I would say, in the time I've been watching higher ed, it's nice to see everyone sort of on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I used to cover the legislature, and if you don't have enough resources, colleges end up competing with one another, and that probably doesn't help anybody in Louisiana.
It's good for them each to be strong on their own.
Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Louisiana Public Square. We encourage you to visit our website at lpb.org/public square. While you're there, click the Facebook or Twitter links to comment on tonight's show. We would love to hear from you.
We sure would. So other than LPB, where do you get your news? How can you distinguish between fact and fake news? And how does social media blur the difference? Learn more in December on an encore presentation of News About the News. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Good night.
Good night.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org.